I very recently had the opportunity to try out the Sigma 16 to 28mm lens, but the video I had planned due to the wind and the weather didn't come to fruition. It was quite a blustery day and at times got soaked, but it was all worth it. It was worth it to get back out again, as I hadn't been out just solely photographing in such a long time, or it felt like a long time. So this video this week is going to be looking at focal blending and why we do it and the process involved. Thanks again for tuning back into the channel. In this week's video we are going to be looking at focal blending, the why you do it, and also the post-production of the shots that I've taken to show you. If you take the image that I'm going to use for the focal blend, it's 16mm. I like the entire composition of that. I like everything that you can see in the frame at the moment. I like that at 16mm. I've got my foreground elements, I've got my midground and my background elements, I've got the waves coming in. But the main character is the lighthouse. And because I've shot this at 16mm, it sends the lighthouse into the background because I wanted to include the foreground. So how you compensate for that with the same scene, and in this case, I took a second shot at 28mm. Now the difference between the 16mm and the 28mm that you can see on screen now is that the lighthouse has more prominence in the frame. But I've lost all the surrounding elements that I wanted to include in the frame. 28mm is probably the maximum I would zoom to. That's restricted by the lens, of course, but it's probably the maximum that I would have zoomed into. That's a maximum focal length that I would use for this. And that means that I can then, because it's taken at the same time, just sequential images, it's taken at the same time. The light, in this case, didn't change, so I'm able to blend it even easier. And that's the reason we would do that. We want to marry the two images, the entire scene as you see it at 16mm in this case, along with the 28mm to give my main character, the lighthouse, a more prominent role in the entire image. Now there's other things that you can do as well, but I'm going to cover them in another video so that we're just looking at the 16mm shot, the 28mm shot, and the post-production in this video. So without further ado, let's dive right in to the edit. These are the two images that I'm going to use for this tutorial, a 16mm and a 28mm. And they're taken sequentially at just seconds after each other. So what I'm going to do, this is Capture One, and you can do this in Lightroom as well. You can just open them as layers in Lightroom. But from here in Capture One, I'm going to select both, right click and edit with, and in this case Photoshop 2025, edit variants, and then Capture One goes through the process of this. So because Capture One opens them as separate files, I have to take them into the one file. So I'm going to grab the 28mm shot and just drag that directly in and drop it on there. And then I am going to, using the horizon, I'm going to try and match them up as best I can, and then just move it over slightly using the arrow keys. So if we take that to there, that's roughly about right. Now Photoshop does this a lot quicker and probably more reliably, but my preference for this type of editing in general with this camera is Capture One. Once we have that in place, I'm going to bring up the opacity of the top layer. Now, one of the simplest ways of doing this is by creating a hide all layer and painting in. So what I can do is I can hold down Alt and click the mask button on the keyboard, and that disappears. Then the next part for me is starting to paint this all back in. Now, it actually just depends on yourself how you want this to work. You may prefer painting in, you may prefer taking out using a mask, so that would be a reveal all mask. It is entirely up to you how you evolve this process. Now for me, I am using a tablet, And I couldn't stress the importance and the ease of use when using a tablet. As simple as this. Now I can paint in, and I'm only wanting some of it in. So I can go to there, and I'll deal with everything over here later. So I can do that. And then here, we know that it's a lot closer, so the rocks will be different. And I can do that and paint that in there. So there you go. That is it, done. And to be honest, it's worked really well the first time. Is it any different from how it should look? There we go to there. Now, the answer, of course, is yes. And this is when you go in and refine it. But that is, and however long this is taken, the basic principle of it. So you're painting it in. You can see up here the clouds don't match. You can see that I need to take areas out here. And if I just press X on my keyboard and start painting out there, you will notice that I can actually paint out. To refine this further is why I would recommend using a tablet. And it's just a case now of turning the layers on and off to see if you can see where any lines appear and any anomalies appear within your image. Down here, everything looks okay. There's a slight, it's a 4-second shot, so, but you notice in here there's some fading. So let's see, I'm on black, let's see, yes. So now is when a tablet really comes into its own, because I can jump back and forward here, and I won't show you the entire process, but I can now jump back and forward here and start to refine this. I can zoom in further, take the brush size down, and actually if I wanted to, take the opacity down. I'm just going to leave the flow where it is and just start painting through, because should you print this, you don't want any anomalies. Now when it comes in here and you see a slight fade away, that could be because the water was there when you were taking the image. So it's just a case of going in now and finding the areas that you want to be in focus. And you can see I can paint these areas back in or go Z and paint them back out. It's entirely up to you. So what I'll do for the rest of this is I'll go back in, take this up to 100 and just zoom through this edit before we take it to the next stage. At the very edges, I'm using a soft brush just to blend away anything that I think will show up should this image be printed, which it never will. It's not a great image, but that will just allow you to see any edges. Now, most of the time I would be flicking the image on and off, as you saw during the tutorial, and that's simply so that I can see and make myself aware of any lines within the image, like for example just there, and so that the blends are better. Just in there. Yep, there's one up there as well. What we want to do now is go in and tidy up the image. So I could go in and remove this rope and some of the debris down here, but to be honest, I don't want to, because that's there. But what shouldn't be there is the rubbish. that's in and left in this grass. So I'm going to go in and clean some of that up. But as you know, we're on a mask layer and we have the original layer down below, which some of the rubbish is on. But to make life easier, if we just press Shift, Control, Alt and E, or Shift, Command, Alt and E, that combines what we have just done there into one layer. And then I can go in and start to clean this up. So with this image here, as if this was the final image we had taken, we can then go in and we can go into Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and edit your image as you see fit. It's at this point I can actually close down one of the tiffs that I don't need and be left with this one. Hopefully you get something from that, and hopefully it just lets you see the image that I made. That's not the scene as it was, that is the image that I made. And if you think about it, you're making images for yourself. You may have certain people that go, well, that's not how the scene actually looks. If that's how you want the scene to look, you make it look like that. And that's where focal blending allows you to give more prominence to it. Can be quite frustrating if someone sees your image and then goes to try and recreate it exactly, and when they get there they have no idea what kind of lens you've used and everything. So sometimes you get that castle wasn't that size, or that lighthouse isn't that size from that location. Perhaps it's been focal blended. Have a go at focal blending if you don't already do it. It's worth it just to give, in this case, your main subject a more prominent feature in the landscape that surrounds it. Thanks again for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.